Well, hi there, everybody. Welcome to the Gary Neville Podcast. We described the game we've just watched here at Ellen Road, Gary, as a throwback, as a fixture, because the rivalry is a throwback, really. It hasn't happened in front of a big crowd like this at Ellen Road for nearly 20 years. But the nature of the game was something, it was almost mud, but it was everything else, puddles and slide tackles. What's your post-match reaction to it?
Really exciting game. I think it's... You said it during commentary. They spent a lot of money on this pitch last summer, but it's been tested today. And I have to say, during the first half, I thought the water was starting to hold. It was starting to slow down, and it added to a brilliant game in the second half. This stadium's not changed. The atmosphere, obviously, it's been how long now since this game's actually taken place here with fans in the stadium. So it was something that I was really looking forward to today, and it has delivered. Manchester United had more. We always knew that before the game. I'm just surprised that Leeds got back into the game, but it certainly helped the second half become an interesting watch, and it was brilliant for about 20 minutes in terms of a spectacle. It was fast, it was furious, slide tackles. Like I said at one point, I think it was like 1978. But Manchester United's quality in the end told with the two or three players they have up top. They really did well.
Had three different scoring chunks of 2 goals, didn't it? The 2 headers for Manchester, eventually a goal from a corner, which they're first in the Premier League this season. And at that stage, with Maguire and Fernandes scoring, it looked almost routine for Manchester United.
It didn't surprise me that once Manchester United got that first one, we've seen Leeds here quite a few times, and once they concede one, the crowd become frantic, the team follow them, and they become even more desperate on the pitch, and they lack composure, and you think they're going to go and get done 2, 3 and 4, and that's what we thought would happen. And to get that second just before half-time, I thought that was game over. I thought Manchester United would just sit back a little bit deeper in the shape in the second half, just pick them off on the counter-attack and go and score that 3rd and 4th goal. But with a mad 2 minutes, incredible, the game just came to life. Don't know what happened. Manchester United do have vulnerabilities. You know, David De Gea, we saw that graphic, didn't we? I think 92 saves, the most in the Premier League. Meslier, Leeds goalkeeper, second. It's not a good reflection upon these teams. And I don't know how many saves David De Gea has made today in terms of the exact number, but he's had to make quite a few here again today, and Leeds had good chances. They've got to become more difficult to play against Manchester United. I mean, they're playing Atletico Madrid away on Wednesday. They've got Tottenham, Liverpool and Manchester City coming up. And it's a big month, and that month's going to define the season in terms of finishing in the top 4 and obviously progressing in the Champions League. So they've got to stop those mad moments, 5-minute periods where they concede 2 goals, because you concede 2 against City and Liverpool in 5 minutes, or Atletico Madrid, and you're out the game, you're out the tie. So I think that it's a warning sign, but what I would say is that the conditions here today were difficult. I thought both sets of players did really well, and both teams contributed to a brilliant match.
And for Ralf Rangnick, having seen his side go back to 2-2, which happened at Aston Villa quite recently as well, now he found 2 substitutes who came on and won the game. Perfect scenario for him because it is a different style of management for Manchester United to the one that they were used to under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
It definitely is different. I mean, there's no doubt. I think he's found it probably more difficult than he imagined at the beginning. I think it's been difficult. The run's been good. The fixtures have been good as well, but he's done what he had to do in the fixtures. There's a lot of stuff coming out of Manchester United on a continual basis. Captaincy, who they want as the next manager, clicks in the dressing room, all that sort of stuff comes out, but they do continue to keep having those big moments in matches where the brilliant players can still deliver for them, and they do win games in moments. But the test is now the next month for Manchester United. It was always going to come this period, and it's here. That was the start of it. I think it was a really difficult game. I never thought, Leeds, they're a team here that do invite you on to go and score goals against them, but it's still, for Manchester United, one of the most difficult places to come in the second half to I suppose, to concede 2 and get back to 2-2 and then go again. They did settle themselves down, they did compose themselves, they did come back in the game, so it was a big plus in the end for Ralf Rangnick. I don't think he gets the job at the end of the season, come what may now. I think that there maybe was a feeling at the beginning that if he went like that, then that could happen. That isn't going to happen. Manchester United will have a new manager next season.
But will he have a say in who the new manager is?
I think he will, because what he's got is a real good view of the personalities, characters, performance levels, training levels of the current group of players. So he's in a strong position to be able to advise. He's probably in the strongest position to be able to advise, because he's having day-to-day contact with them. He's seeing them, how they cope with disappointment, how they cope with atmospheres, how they cope with big games, how they cope with training games, 3 games in a week. Can they meet the demands of the club? Have they got the quality? He's seeing that, and I think he'll judge it. People say he's a sporting director and as a coach, but the reality of it is his position as coach is short-term. His position as assisting the club constructing their new methodology moving forward and their new structure moving forward is a longer-term position for 2 years. So I'd rather him get that bit right. I'd rather the sort of short-term suffer for the longer-term perspective being right. And I think that he's got good experience around building structures in football clubs, and Manchester United do need that. And in the summer, they've got big appointments to make, namely the manager. The manager has got to be right next season to be able to take on Tuchel, Guardiola and Klopp. Because if you don't take on those 3 with a manager who can sort of face them like for like, you'll get beat up. You know, it's been proven over the last few years that great managers in this league will bring you great things. And Manchester United need a great manager to compete with the ones that are at that level in this league at this moment in time.
It's extraordinary, isn't it, the change in this weekend with the Manchester City defeat, which we'll come on to. But the fact is that Manchester United have won. Chelsea have won just, and they're never playing any league games at the moment. They're playing, obviously, this Club World Cup, which congratulations to them for winning. They've now got their Champions League. They've got the League Cup final, which will be out, the Carabao Cup final. So they're sort of being distracted a little bit. And now Manchester United actually, instead of looking downwards, might be just looking upwards, having won here today.
I think so, but also I think Manchester United needed these points in the bag. It's inconceivable to think that coming out of Tottenham, Manchester City away, Tottenham at home, Manchester City away and Liverpool away, that they're going to get 7 to 9 points. Look, as a United fan, I hope they do, but they could easily come out of those 3 games with 4 points, 5 points, 3 points. You don't know. They're the type of games that in any season throughout the last 5 or 10 years you can lose. I know Manchester United have got a half-decent record at City. Tottenham at home, they could win, so you might say they could get 6 or 7 points. You don't know. That would be an unbelievable return, but you've got to plan, if you're Ralph Rangnick, that you're going to drop points in those 3 matches. Not that you would actually foresee it or want it, but it could happen. And I think these points that he's got now from these matches will be needed. Arsenal have still got games in hand, as have Tottenham, so there's a long way to go. But Manchester United are in a decent position. I think if you'd have said to me when Ralph Rangnick took over with the run of fixtures that they've got, I think this is where I would wanted them to have been. Maybe a point or 2 in front, but I think the fact that the club were in a mess when sort of he took over, I still don't think it's plain sailing. I still think it could turn quite quickly. I don't think it's stable behind the scenes at all, but they're okay, and they go to Madrid in midweek. I'm looking forward to going. I'm going as a fan. I've been to 2 or 3 games, and I've actually brought good luck. I've been to Paris Saint-Germain, where they won a few years ago. Really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to Madrid on Wednesday. It's a great stadium there. Been there before, and I hope Manchester United can have a good game, but they've got to come back and do the business on a weekend, because it's really important Manchester United get that fourth place spot.
Well, on the same night, Leeds go to Liverpool, and let's say, well, bad luck to Leeds, and we know what they are and where they are and what they'll try and do at Liverpool. But Liverpool suddenly, the Premier League tree has been shaken by Spurs, and a nice apple has fallen Liverpool's way.
Well, we know Liverpool are a great side, there's no doubt about that, and without Mane and Salah for the last month, which makes it sort of incredibly difficult for them to retain, to chase down Manchester City. If you said to me 3-4 weeks ago, Mane and Salah go to AFCON and
get to the final, by the way.
And get to the final, and Liverpool end up closing the gap on City, I'd say, no, that's not going to happen, because Manchester City have looked absolutely incredible. But we do have a title race. I mean, that game last night was fantastic. This game here today was. I've said this season, I couldn't speak more highly of the Premier League this season. And that's not me just spouting the Sky Sports hat. You know, in the past I've said it's really good. The games are fantastic. Last night was really brilliant. I really enjoyed that game. Quality was good. I thought Tottenham's game plan was fantastic. It suited Conte, up against it, losing his last couple of matches, everything looking like it was going on decline. You could see him interview by interview sort of getting further away from Daniel Levy, thinking that this is going to end up in a sort of mess.
He had to apologise, didn't he, for actually criticising or being perceived to criticise the transfer policy, when of course the 2 players that they did bring in were part of the victory yesterday. But Harry Kane, a lot of talk obviously at the start of the season. They started by beating Manchester City, but Harry Kane was seemingly heading to Manchester City then. Where are we with him? Is he just showing that he still wants to play? He's loving Spurs, or is that a showcase for Pep, or indeed for any other part of Manchester that might show an interest in him?
Maybe, and look, he's class. I've said before that these players that are at the highest level, even if they're going through a more difficult patch on the pitch and off the pitch, they still perform, they still give a lot to the team. Yesterday was just an outstanding, I wouldn't call it centre-forward performance, I just call it an all-round general leadership performance, just generally in the game. The way in which, to go to Manchester City, you know how difficult it is. You're living off scraps as a forward in a game against Manchester City. Your possession is sort of down to 25-30%. Your touches in the game are less. So when you get touches in the game, they have to count. And he made every single touch last night count, Harry Kane. He was so precise in everything that he did. And when you play against City to beat them, it has to be that way, because you might only get 5-6 attacks a game, 2 or 3 in the first half, 2 or 3 in the second. That's not chances, by the way, that's attacks. Good attacks where you have chance to maybe, and even then you have to show and demonstrate courage to turn and take it in difficult positions, because Rodri, Laporte, Diaz, they're all over you like a rash. Cancelo and sort of Walker are preventing counter-attacks. They've got a real good block in place to stop you counter-attacking on them. But he was really, really good in the sense that he didn't waste a pass. He was precise. Everything he did was perfect. Apart from the chance that he did have, I think it was I can't remember at what point in the game it was, to be honest with you, but I think there was a point where he did have a great chance and sort of Ederson saved it with his leg. That was the only thing in the game that you could argue he did wrong, but I think it demonstrated what Manchester City were trying to sign, what I think Manchester United would love to have, that centre forward that's reliable, that's going to score goals, that you can play off. People say that he might not be able to run as much as he could used to, but actually I think for Manchester City that's not the most important thing, because they dominate the ball at the edge of the opponent's box for 75% of the game, and actually having pace doesn't really count for that much as a Manchester City striker. You've got to be clever, you've got to work in tight spaces, you've got to understand where your teammates are and have that awareness, and he has all those things.
Well, what I would say is we've got to now, after one defeat, have a look at Manchester City, and what does that mean to them, Gary? I mean, yeah, they played in the Champions League in midweek. That might have been a factor, travelling, but they won comfortably. So on the field, there wasn't too much stress. But they were just, the big moments went against them last night, and does that open a door, not just for Liverpool, but for other teams to help Liverpool by getting results against Manchester City?
It does, because Manchester United play against Manchester City, Liverpool will have to play against Manchester City. It definitely does open the door. There'll be no panic. They've got too much experience. I don't think I could look at that game last night and say they were complacent, but if you've just gone away, you're 5-0 in Europe, you're looking like you're in a fantastic position in the league, you might just drop off a touch.
And Spurs have lost these games recently.
Spurs have lost these games. You're thinking they're coming to us in a bad place, they'll concede goals, and they just got caught out. They got caught out by maybe a little bit of sloppiness themselves, but more, I think, by the fact that they did have an outstanding performer against them in Harry Kane. And we know that Son and Kane, if they combine together, we know they can combine together. We know that they're world class on the day, and they found that out. I think that ultimately, I was surprised by the result, but it kept me on the edge of my seat at home. I wasn't expecting it at all. I expected Manchester City to win the game, but it's good for the league. Good for Liverpool, because they're the team that they wouldn't want hunting them down, and it just gives everybody that little bit of something towards the end of the season. We've got a great couple of months to look forward to, and this league's been too good this year for it to be a runaway winner by 12-15 points. I think we need that little bit of something going into the last part of the season, and I think we're going to get it. Well,
let's just touch on the bottom, because we might get a different scenario there, because for Watford to have an away win and Burnley to score 3 where Brighton is obviously a difficult place to go. That suddenly, I was travelling up north and I stopped at a motorway service station. The Burnley fans were heading to Brighton with no optimism whatsoever. But they've made a much happier journey back. And with Newcastle, obviously, with the resources to make the big investments in January, there's nothing cut and dried really at the bottom, is there?
No, I was at Newcastle last week and came to the conclusion during that game that I wasn't watching a team that was going to get relegated. Massive improvements in all ways, just the way they pushed up the pitch, the way in which they were playing, the confidence, the atmosphere in the stadium. It was different. And yesterday I watched the game actually, or large parts of the game against West Ham, and thought that again they were sort of really resilient and good. Good goal by Willock, just that little sort of touch. It was clever, that. And went into the afternoon kickoffs thinking that ultimately we would probably be seeing Norwich, Watford and Burnley go down. And Watford we know do that thing of yo-yo. Norwich don't invest enough, you don't think, to really sort of have a go at it. And they've been poor all season, or sort of not as good as the rest all season. And Burnley's the one that you think, I've thought all season, well, I don't think they're any worse, but the rest of the league has just got stronger. That the teams in sort of what would be 15th, 16th, 14th, 13th. They're a lot stronger than they have been in years gone by. But then Burnley go and do that, and you think, Burnley, Sean Dyche, this could be the greatest escape. If he was to get out of this, it would mean that a Newcastle, a Brentford, a Leeds would go down.
And Everton.
I don't think Everton will, but you're right to include them. I think Brentford played extra games. They are a worry. But I've really enjoyed them this season as well, so I'd be sad to lose them. But
a bit like the Leeds of last season.
Yeah, they have. Every time I've watched them, every time you watch Leeds, irrespective of the fact that after a bit you think, this is just a bit of a mess at times when you're watching them, you still want to watch them play, and I still want to watch Brentford play. I want to go to that stadium and sort of see the sort of great atmosphere and the fact they have a go. So I think there would be a loss. But Leeds and Brentford are, I think, in danger of getting dragged in by resilient Roy Hodgson, Sean Dyche. They've been round the block. They know how to do it. They're not going to panic. They know they're going to lose matches. They might lose games badly, but they know how to go and get shock results and go and win 2 or 3 games on a bounce, and all of a sudden it's completely flipped on its head. And that's where I see this league at this moment in time. We've got sort of some lack of certainty at the top with the Premier League title race now. We thought we had certainty a few weeks ago. I thought I had certainty in the relegation battle at probably 2:30 yesterday with Newcastle going away to West Ham. I just thought that's... But then come 5 o'clock, those results, they made me think, because I thought Watford looked a real mess. But that was a big result, and Burnley winning at Brighton.
The first signs of your old boss, Roy Hodgson, bringing some order to that particular chaos.
I think the thing is, as crazy as that club may be, as crazy as that dressing room may be in terms of sort of the collaboration of players that exist, Roy and Ray will bring a feeling of... I want to say this in a respectful manner because it could sound disrespectful, but they'll almost be like grandparents to them. In this, not because of their age, because of the fact that their knowledge, their calmness, they know it won't be personal when they have a go or when they leave them out. They'll know they're doing this, sort of into the age that they're doing it for the love of the game, and they'll want to play for them. They really will want to play for them. They'll respect them, they'll love them, and they'll want to give it a go for them. And I think that's Roy's biggest thing. He can make players want to do what he wants them to do. He has those repetitive training sessions, those same 6 or 8 sessions that he'll be doing every single day with them. And the players might not see that it's having an impact, and they might go onto the training pitch and go, here we go again, it's that same stuff. But then when they start to get a result like that yesterday, they'll be thinking, oh, I saw patterns starting to develop. I saw things starting to work that we've worked on during the week. And Roy's got the patience to continue to keep doing that. And I think back to my first job at Valencia when I had nothing like the ability. I was out of my depth. I didn't have the patience. I didn't have the knowledge. Didn't have the experience. And when something doesn't work, you try and change it rather than think, no, I'm going to persist with it. And Roy's got the experience with Ray to persist with the patterns, with the training practices. And Watford become more dangerous in terms of staying up by the fact that he's there with Ray. Because those players, he's had to do this before at different clubs, and he's done it before. Sean Dyche, again, he won't panic. He won't panic. He knows that club won't sack him if he goes down. He knows that club will stick with him. He knows that club will be brought back up by him probably more than likely, unless he wants to leave himself. He can call the shots. So he's in that position of control. And whereas other managers at the bottom might be in that position of panic, the 2 managers down there, I suppose even Dean Smith as well, but particularly Roy Hodgson and Sean Dyche, they're in control. They're not being sort of dictated to by players that maybe think they can mess them around. So I think that makes them quite dangerous to the likes of Brentford and Leeds and to Newcastle. But I do think Newcastle have jumped up a level that will mean that they will start looking up the table.
Well, it's been a throwback weekend with management, as you say, success for the old guard, even Sean Dyche and Roy and Ray. Throwback match here. It started with your birthday on Friday.
It did.
You've had a happy birthday weekend. You've seen some great football.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I love this game today. It was the atmosphere. You've kept me behind for 25 minutes, which is always nice. The traffic getting here was absolutely...
You want to keep the podcast going?
Can we keep the podcast going so I can just let them go a little bit further down the M621? Let them get a little bit further away from that bridge at the back there. Yeah, they're a little bit naughty, this lot here. But to be fair, you want these clubs in the Premier League. You do. I mean, that's... sort of seems like they haven't got a God-given right to be here, and they know that more than anybody because they haven't been for a long time. But the atmosphere that it can generate, these games are special. And Manchester United have risen to the task today, I have to say. They were put under pressure that second half, and they delivered.
That is your birthday gift.
It is.
Thanks,
Thank
Gary.
you.